In the end of this video, I promise you, you're gonna know how to overcome every single objection your prospects give you. Now, you guys will have the knowledge. What you won't have is the implementation. So that's why on October 15th, I'm doing a live training showing you exactly how I earned $1 million my first ever year selling anything and collected over $7 million in cash collected. So if you guys want that, register below. But let's get right into the video. So the first step to overcoming objections is you have to realize what is an actual objection, because there's smoke screens and there's real objections. Now, the smoke screens consist of people saying, I want to think about it. I want to go to the free resources. I want to speak to my partner. And all these different excuses the prospect will give you. But fundamentally, how I'm able to handle objections every single time is because I target not the fake objection, but the real objection. Let me give you an example for a second. If you were telling your friend, hey man, why don't you want to go to the gym? And they said, yeah, I just don't have the time. But if you really dug deep into why he didn't want to go, it's because he was insecure. That's a real concern. But if you just concentrate on him not having the time, are you actually overcoming his concern in his mind? Or are you just pushing him away? That's the question you have to ask yourself. So to overcome the real concern, this is what you have to do. I have a 5-step formula. Number one, you need to get to the real objection. How do we do that? We have to get behind what they're saying. So for example, if someone says, hey, I just want to think about it. No worries at all, man. I guess before you do go think about it, like what is really coming up for you that makes you want to do so? Just to see if I can help. Now, once you say that, the prospect is going to say, oh yeah, the real concern is just the money. So now they have given you the real objection and we can actually start overcoming the real concern rather than concentrating on the fake concern. The second step is you can't listen to what the prospect says. You have to listen to what they mean by what they say. Now, what I mean by that is when the prospect says, hey, I just want to go think about it, or hey, I want to go to the free resources. This is how you get to the real objection. Very simple. If they say, hey, I just want to go to the free resources, I'll be like, no worries at all. Is it fair to say then what you're looking for is just like a little bit of certainty? And they'll be like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Okay. What have we done there? This is one of the most important parts, is we have got the prospect to admit that the real objection isn't that they need to go through the free resources, it's that they have a lack of certainty. Now, how did I know this? Because if they had certainty, would they need to go through free resources? No. So what they're missing is what? Certainty. So that's how we get to the real objection as quickly as possible. Now, the main question everybody asks is, what is uncertainty? What does that really mean? It means fear. It means that they're fearful. And then there's a frames that we can go through to be able to overcome this fear. But the most important part is understanding what type of uncertainty it is. Everybody thinks that you can just handle fear with one quick reframe and that's going to be it. But you have to understand what type of fear it is, because if it's fear of past failures, now what I mean by that, they had an experience that has led to this new belief system, so now they're scared of that past failure. You have to overcome that type of fear. If they're scared of them getting the result, that's a different way of overcoming the fear. Or if they're scared of their actual commitment level of doing the work, that's a different way of handling that fear. So you got to realize that with fear, you can't just handle it all the same way. There's different ways that you have to overcome that fear. The next step is getting the prospect to agree. Now, one of the most key parts that I did in that portion is that I got the prospect to agree to the real objection, because you can't handle something that they don't actually believe. If they tell you, hey, I need to go speak to my partner, and you just start handling the fear, they're not going to resonate with what you're doing because you haven't actually targeted the real objection. So your goal here is to make sure you're targeting the real objection. How do you do that? Is by calling it out and getting them to agree with it. I'll show you an example. If they say, hey, I just want to go to the free resources. Okay, so is the reason you want to go to the free resources because you're lacking a bit of certainty? And they say, yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, cool. Then you can start handling your fear, because what have they done? They've agreed and admitted that that's the real objection, so you can actually start handling it. Because if someone says, hey, I don't want to go to the gym today because I don't have time, and you start handling fear of them going to the gym, they're going to be bamboozled and they're not going to actually appreciate you because you're not handling the real concern and they haven't admitted that that's a concern. The next step is cutting through the bullshit. Now, what do I mean by that? Is there's very simple ways for you to get to the real objection very, very quickly without actually having to handle the fake concern. And this is the way that I do it. If someone says, hey man, I just need to go like speak to my partner, and I'll be like, okay man, no worries at all. I guess money out of the equation. Would you do it? And they'll be like, yeah. I'd be like, okay, so it's not really that you need to go speak to your partner, it's more just about the money. And they say, yeah, that's exactly right. So now we skip having to concentrate on the bullshit objection, and we can actually concentrate on the real objection, which is the money. Now, one of the most key aspects of what I just did here wasn't just that I said money aside. The key aspect is that I called them out on the bullshit. And I was like, oh, so you don't need to speak to your partner, it's more just about the money, and he agrees. Once he agrees, that's when you can actually start handling the objection, where if they do not agree, you cannot start handling the real objection. Let me give you another example, because it's really key. If someone says, oh, so is the reason that you're wanting to go to the free resources is just because you're lacking certainty? And they say, no, I just want to go through them. I'm like, okay, but if you knew you couldn't fail, would you do it? And they'll be like, yeah. Okay, got it. So then what you're lacking is certainty, right? They'll be like, yeah. So then we get to the real objection. The key aspect is you cannot move on until you get to the real concern. The last step is separate who they are to who they need to become. This is one of the most important parts, because people make decisions based on who they believe they are and who they believe they need to become. So your job here is to separate the person who they are and who they need to become. I always use this in my objection handling. You guys should always see this in my videos, right? Always target, what would the person who you want to be, what would he do in this position right here, right now? The guy who's making 30 grand a month, would he make this decision? And of course he would. You see? So what I'm doing is separating the person who's making 5 grand a month to the person who's making 30 grand a month. If they say, yeah, I just always do things this way, I always sleep on it. Yeah, that's what you always do, because that's the guy who's making 5 grand a month, right? He always wants to think about it. But the guy who's making 30 grand a month, what would he do? You see? Consistently separating who he is to who he needs to become, because people make decisions based on who they believe they are. And people need to make a decision not based on where they are, but where they need to be to get a different result. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I want to remind you again, October 15th is our live free training. So if you guys want to watch live, because there will be no recording, make sure you show up. Only a couple slots remaining. So I'll see you there.